Right, let's get it rolling. Welcome to the second episode of the YN podcast. Andrew's having a bit of a buckle because I keep fluffing the intro. So just like the Dwayne Holmes episode, I made about 10 mistakes, so Dwayne had to sit and listen to me for about 10 minutes, and Andrew's pretty much just done the same. For anyone that's new to the podcast, this is a podcast where I ask a series of questions to members of YN, speakers at YN, that range from professional footballers to professional speakers. And I also bring on people from the gaming side of things and ask them a series of questions and bring out a side to them that you don't usually see on a podcast. We're going to ask a series of questions from personal to business to weird and wacky, and hopefully bring out the best in the guests that are across from us, hopefully in the future in person, which would be absolutely amazing. You want to tell yours a little bit about yourself, Andrew?
Well, thank you for having me on. First of all, I really do appreciate you taking the time to invite me onto the podcast, and I'm excited to hear some of the questions that you've got for me. So for everyone who's listening, my name is Andy, and I am working towards becoming a mindset coach and a habit building coach. I would like to help people free up some more time for their life to live the life that they actually choose through systems and processes, and moving forward in the business that they may have always been scared to push forward with. I focus on positivity and trying to bring the best out in others, and that's a little bit about me.
Absolutely love that, mate. Absolutely love that. And for anyone who doesn't know, I've been working with Andrew for like, what, 4 months now, nearly?
Yeah, around about
that. We have pretty much a weekly check-in call, which is part of YN, where we sit and speak about ideas. And see, to be fair, mate, it's got to the point where I feel like I should be paying you for what you bring, for what you bring to the check-in calls, because we've implemented so many good learnings, mate. And in terms of like the habit building aspect, I think I've kind of realised that it's almost, I think being around you obviously it's inspired me further to like track it as much as I can and really knuckle down on the habits that are really beneficial for me. But I also feel like I think I've come to the realisation through my stretches, my shoulder mobility is starting to get a bit better, so I'll be able to go back to the gym soon, which I'm really happy about. And I feel like the gym is what I'm looking for in terms of, it's almost like I'm using all these habits to fill that void, kinda, of like what the gym was holding, bro, because the gym would just give me so much clarity, mate. So much clarity, man. So in terms of like the habit building aspect, what is your take on the importance of habits and why you've knuckled down so much on habit building?
We're sort of creatures of habits, you know. Everything we've done from any time anyone has been alive is formed through our habits. You know, a lot of things become automatic. You don't think about what shoe you put on first. You don't think about how you get out of your bed, but they're all usually similar ways that we do it. So to me, I realized that everything I was doing, whether I was disciplined, whether I was actually moving forward in my business, or whether I was doing nothing, was all related to the habits that I had. So that then led me on to wanting to find out more about why habits form, why we form bad habits, how we break them, how we unlock new areas of our life to actually move forward in not only one, but multiple areas at the same time. And that was what interested me so much, that small, simple changes can make everlasting results if you're just willing to be consciously aware of what you do in a day, you know, because you don't think about how you drink water or how you check your phone, but you probably do it the same way every single time. And if we can create automation and things that are actually going to benefit our life rather than just sort of mundane tasks, mate, the world is literally at your fingertips at that point.
I couldn't agree more, mate. And I think for me, the main reason I've implemented all these kind of habits is because, well, for one, areas like meditation and stuff like that, like anyone that has any sort of mental clarity on a high level meditates. It's pretty much like the one common denominator for most people in it. And obviously, like common things like, you know, reading, journaling, scheduling. Journaling and scheduling is two for me that I never thought would be so important when I think back, because I've done a post today on LinkedIn and I've done a video about it on Twitter about my 18-year-old self and what I would think of the person I am today. And I came to the conclusion that my 18-year-old self would resent who I am today. Wow. Because I was just a pessimistic, moaning, no responsibility. But I left school, mate, and it was like everything was the school's fault, innit? Like the teacher's fault. I wasn't meant to sit in at school and all that kind of stuff, and it was a terrible attitude to have, bro. And I think that when I think about people that are positive, people like yourself, for example, someone like I've become, which I'm incredibly proud of who I've became and the kind of steps that I've took, but I think my 18-year-old self would look at me and think that everything I was speaking about, as much as I solely believe that it's all fact, and everything that you're speaking is absolute fact, my 18-year-old pessimistic self would think I'm full of shit. I think was the conclusion I'd came to, because I thought back to like whenever, I mean, you see it all the time, innit? I mean, you probably get it a lot. I spoke to Dwayne quite a bit. Obviously, with footballers, they get it in quite a abuse level and quite a high level in it. But in terms of, I imagine probably from you previously streaming and stuff like that, the abuse that comes with that kind of territory, it's mainly from people that are kind of in that kind of headspace, which is why I think I'm probably more understanding of it, because I was quite pessimistic and I was just kind of like, but I would never ever take action in any sort of stuff like that. I would just kind of make sure I couldn't see all the positivity and like, my life's just full of shit kind of way. And it was a terrible attitude to have, mate. But things like you were speaking about, mundane tasks, especially picking up my phone, mate, it's something that's just so, it's got to the point I want keep calling it a work phone, but I want a phone that's for business, so that I can actually see the time that I have on my phone that's not business related.
Right, okay.
And obviously you can see it through the apps and stuff like that you're on. Yeah. But I mean, there's times where I just dabble quite a bit, and it's just kind of like automating. And it's funny because I had this conversation with my mum when she was talking about not burning out, how she doesn't burn out. And it's one she obviously takes the weekends off, and for me, I used to always work through like every single day. She also takes bank holidays off and stuff like that. She's always kind of got into that habit. And she said that her saving grace for not burning out was Candy Crush. That's what she said to me.
That's amazing.
Because whenever she got a spare 5-10 minutes and she'd worked her arse off, she'd go over, she'd sit on the couch. Now I've seen her do it for years, mate, since my old house, so a good 7 or 8 years. She'd just sit and play Candy Crush, mate. And that'd be it. It's like, do those mundane tasks like fill a void of, do they help you rejuvenate?
Like, they definitely can, because you're able to take your mind away from everything.
Yeah.
You know, you're able to keep yourself away from the work that you're doing. And I believe that your mum doing that over a long period of time, she's now able to separate work and Candy Crush completely separately. So that is the reward system. You know, you've got the sort of queue of you've done the work and you've completed it, and then the reward is Candy Crush, you know. So having that separation is actually really important for anyone who's looking to build good habits over a long period of time. And some people will say, obviously, like, playing Candy Crush is a waste of time. In hindsight, playing it for 4 hours out of the day probably is. But with your mum using that alongside her actual good tasks that are pushing her business forward, that's when it becomes a system that works over the long run, and why she hasn't burnt out. Yeah.
And I think this is something that's I've kind of, it was one part, I think I spoke about it with Kyle or what I say, that it's almost like everything that we're bombarded with in it is like all the gurus working 20 hours a day and all that kind of stuff. And like you're almost like led to believe that's like what you have to do to make it.
Yeah.
And you do kind of, in a way, the main reason I took on Paula as my coach was because she was the exact opposite. And she actually taught it in a way that was logical to me. About the whole working less and more aspect, how to get to that level. And when it came to, it was the first person that was, you know, at a level in business that I wanted to be at, that wasn't telling me about how much I had to work and how much I had to graft and how I couldn't have any time off and how I had to grind away. And that's kind of the idea that you get, almost like a level of obsession. And it's a weird kind of trap that you get in, mate, and obviously the burnout aspect of it. So I think being around my mum and obviously taking on Paula has changed my attitude in it, but I also feel like I'm in limbo a bit with them both. I'm not fully broken out of that pure workhorse attitude. Yesterday, for example, went to my gran's in the morning for breakfast because I had no calls, so I'm going to go spend some time with my gran. Took that time off. Then I came back, knocked off a couple of emails, started my stream at 12. Then when I found out my stream at 12, I went and had a catch up with one of my mates for a couple of hours, went to Nando's. And when I came back, I almost felt guilty. Even though it was bank holiday Monday, even though I still streamed, even though I still knocked out a couple of tasks, I still felt like I hadn't done enough, mate. Yeah. And it's so deeply verbally programmed as well. And it's like, do I want to break it? Do I want to break that verbal programming? Because I believe my future self will thank me for it. For working that hard, but also it's the limbo aspect. So that's why I feel like the habits are so important. If, say, I go back on the limbo, using my spare time to meditate, read, journal, schedule, do stretches, some form of exercise, cold showers, all that kind of stuff. If I combine that with a workhorse attitude, I should have a level of clarity where my output is quite high. Is my thought process on it. What do you do to achieve it? On you go.
No, sorry, what was your question?
I was going to say, what do you do to achieve, like, what do you do to try and achieve 100% output? So that you're up at that kind of high octane level.
See, the interesting thing is I used to be what you are.
Yeah.
You know, I loved the hustle culture. You know, Gary Vee was obviously the pinnacle of that at the time anyway. And I used to do sort of like 12 to 15 hours minimum. And if I didn't hit that quota, I was like, this day's been crap. This day's been terrible. I've not actually achieved what I wanted to. And I look back on those times now on what I'd actually achieved in that front. And there's only one thing that stands out to me, and that was creating the website from scratch. I created a website that took me 11 months to create at that point. And other than that, nothing else was really an insane success in my eyes. You know? And what I realized was that I wasted so much time doing things that didn't really matter to feel like I was being productive and feel like I was pushing myself forward. And I didn't actually get anywhere with it. So when I took a step back and I started to read, this is when I started to get into the habits. You know, I started to read, I started to meditate a little bit more. I consumed better content that I was actually taking action on rather than just content for the sake of consuming it. I stopped working as much. I worked maybe 4 or 5 hours of like deep work a day, I would say. And I feel more successful in my business, in my life, than I've ever felt throughout this whole time. And that's because everything I do now is structured in a way that gets me closer to the person I want to be. And there's something that I always try to remember about getting that 100% output is that within the time I work, whenever I can do that 100%, I've got to go and do something that I enjoy afterwards, because as sad as it is to say, anything can happen, you know, at any point. If I continue to work 15 hours a day when the time I was doing it and then pass away, you know, what have I really got to enjoy about the life that I had had? And I get that it's important to grind and work away and do all that sort of stuff, but even yesterday, I knew a boy who I played football with for a couple of years, and he sadly passed away yesterday, and he was 23.
That's mental, man.
We really don't have a grasp on what can go on. And when I realise and when I look back to the two different people of who I am now, working these hours, and I'm structured and I've got my habits and my priorities, but also gaining experience, and that person who was working 15 hours, the person I am today is the one that I would always choose no matter what. And I feel that 100% output has to come from knowing what you want. Do you want to be the CEO who's running 200 employees, or do you want to be the person that chooses what they want to do with their time when they want to do it? As you said, like the Paula comparison. Paula, Gary Vee, the two separate people, both incredibly successful, both live different lives. So you've got to choose what you want and not what other people want, because then you can determine what your output actually is and then what you need to do to get there.
I think that's a great take on it, mate. I think you've decided, like, broken down exactly how my mind operates in it to the point where life is too short in it. You never know how short it's going to be, and it's like, is there any point in sacrificing today for a better tomorrow when tomorrow isn't guaranteed? It's that kind of thought process on it that, like, am I just doing all of this and anything could happen tomorrow? And I think for me, like, my reality check on that was when I went that 250 days straight, that my health just started to just deteriorate, mate, and I started to feel so shit, bro. I started to feel terrible, and it got to that point, and the funniest thing was, bro, I felt so bad that I thought I was gonna, like, pass out potentially, and I still hopped on my call, mate. And I hopped on the call with the guy, and I was like, just like, you know, Brian, mate, I'm not really feeling too good today, bro. I might have to hop off. As soon as he started speaking, just like wave over my body, mate, I was like, holy fuck. I was like, Brian, I'm gonna need to hop off, mate. And as soon as I hopped off, mate, I said this to Kel, I just broke down, mate. I was absolutely burnt out beyond belief. And my mum was like, that was when typical mum attitude. She was like, right, John, no nothing in it. You're sitting in your bed. I'll make you your scran. No work shit. Give me your email. Give your emails to me. Give them to Bex. Do whatever you need to do. and just sit and do nothing for a few days.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, because I'd worked myself to that level, it was like those 3 days felt like I needed them. They were justified because I took myself at that breaking point. And see those 3 days off, mate. See when I woke up on Monday, and I came out. When I was in the shower, all that Zen state of mind. So many ideas are flowing. When I came out of the shower, I had 3 solutions for 3 problems that had been driving me crazy for like a month, mate. And it was like, holy shit! Like, I've just solved 3 problems that have been a massive like pain in my ass for so long, and it was like, how did I do this without having to take 3 days off? Was my question. But it's like, I feel like you can only reach that through meditation if you were to continue to work X amount of days. Like, I only take 1 day off a week from streaming, and then YN Saturday and Sundays is kind of like, obviously no calls or nothing, but I'm maybe doing some work here or there. But it's a kind of, the question I kept asking myself was like, how did I get here on that Monday that I remember, where solutions are flowing, my brain is not foggy, my brain is not clogged, I feel nice, mate, I feel good. How did I get there without having to take 3 days off? Is there even an answer for it, mate? Well, I'm yet to find it. But
it's a good question, because the problem with it is that the only person who can ever answer that is you.
Yeah.
You know, everyone is different. And for me, for a very long time, I listened to too many people about how they want their life to be and not how I wanted my life to be.
Yeah.
I might not get the success that I am aiming for in the same space if I were to work 15 hours a day, you know, but I'm okay with that. And I have completely accepted that whatever I'm doing to impact other people's life for the better and my own.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, when you work those 250 days, your health started to deteriorate. You can make all the money in the world, right? But if your health's shit, you're not really living your life. You know, if you can't go out with your mates and play sport, if you can't go out a walk without feeling dizzy, if you can't, I don't know, drive somewhere to go walk up a hill, what experiences can you have other than sitting at your desk and doing nothing? You know, and I always try to remind myself of the question of, what are you going to remember on your deathbed? You know, what are you going to remember looking back? Is it going to be that you were talking to some people online, or is it going to be the experiences you actually went out and got? You know, the things you done, the crazy shit that happened in your life, and the leaps that you took for yourself, your health, your business, your relationships, and all that sort of stuff. And you've just got to keep questioning it. You know, you've got to keep questioning how that is possible for you and what your ideal life looks like, because we're all still very young in this process. You know, we haven't been doing business for 20 years yet, so there's a lot to learn, and we're always going to be learning more about what we want to do every day. But you've got to keep questioning it, because the moment you start of, you know, just accept where you're at, is the moment it will start to dwindle. It's tough, because you're not going to find your answer right away, and it's not something I can just give, you know, because it doesn't exist. I don't have that. I know you'll find it at one point, and it will be incredibly eye-opening.
I agree, mate. And I think it is, I mean, I've kind of focused on one thing that you said, and I've brought up multiple times, is, you know, listening to what you're trying to tell yourself, and there isn't really any sort of, when I'm missing my stretches on a day, it's like, right, cool, why am I actually missing my stretches? I'm not just forgetting them. I'm not just dabbling in and out. Why am I really not doing my stretches in it? Like, why? And the conclusion I came to was that I didn't believe that they were actually going to fix me. That was what it was deep within. And I sat with Rebecca, and I was like, to her, are these stretches going to put me in a level of mobility so that I can get back to benching and get back to lifting at a level where I felt good about my body again? And I don't mean how I look physically, I mean genuinely how I feel in my body. And she looked at me in the eyes and she was like, yes, like this will 100%, any sort of mobility training will help your body in any way, shape or form. If you've got rotator cuff issues, any form of stretching over a long period of time, with maybe a bit more intense stretching as time goes on, you'll get to a level where you can go to the gym again and you can start benching. I was like, right, cool, I want to do it then. And from there I've not missed a day. And any days that if I ever went a day, for example, last night I wasn't feeling too good, and I usually do them in the night, if I don't do it in the morning.
Uh-huh.
So today I made it a ritual that, because I wasn't feeling good yesterday, as much as it's a day to write off if I'm not feeling good, I made sure I do them twice today. Done them first thing in the morning, I'll do them exactly when I go to bed at night. And it's that kind of like being strict with myself in a way that it is kind of like I was saying, it's not necessarily sacrificing today for a better tomorrow. It's suffering for that short period of time. I'm stretching for like 15 minutes, mate. What kind of excuse is that not to do that, mate? Do you know what I mean? It's just ridiculous, it's absolutely ridiculous, mate. And like a lot of people have that kind of attitude towards anything that could benefit them. I don't have time to journal, don't have time to schedule, don't have time to meditate. And it was that thing that you brought up about Tim Ferriss, mate. That saying that stuck in my mind for a while. What he said, if you don't have 10 minutes, if you can't find 10 minutes in a day to meditate, you need to meditate for 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that, bro, because I've had days where I've like not found the time, quote unquote, not found the time. And I've just sat there like, why, man? Like, why am I not? Why am I like, what? And I think the realization I'm having as well, I watched the Joe Rogan podcast, right, with Naval Ravikant, and Joe was speaking about, or Naval's take on it was that meditation is literally the art of doing nothing at all. No app, no focusing on breathing, no nothing. You sit there, you close your eyes, whatever happens. That's like his attitude towards it. And I thought, where's like the most breakthroughs happen for me in meditation? Most of them has been when I've just focused on my breathing and nothing else, and just let my thoughts run through like the way he described them, like an email inbox.
Right.
And it's like you're just filtering through all the emails, they're all passing, and eventually we get to the point where the inbox is zero. And at that point, it's like when you actually do close your eyes at that point, anything can happen. You know, you can have crazy transcendent state of minds and all sorts of stuff. But to get to that stage, that's the most difficult part. I think a lot of people struggle with, and even me included, mate. It's been a weird one, mate, because meditation, there was a point in my life where, prior to probably when I started streaming, probably after I met like Posty, who big time business owner, he was speaking to me about meditation, and after that point I took his advice, because he meditates for 2 hours a day. So when I took his advice, I was like, right, cool, if he's meditating for 2 hours a day and he's running X amount of companies and that, it's kind of obvious that I need to be doing this. Like, no shit, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I got really on top of it, mate, and I started to get to a good level from it. I don't know why I stopped, but when I did stop, I did realise a difference in my mood. Felt more agitated, and I felt like I wasn't getting solutions fast enough. And you do, mate, you slip down that slippery slope instead of just getting back up. You just let yourself just fall, mate. And I think that's what happened to me. And now I've struggled to get back to the level I was at with meditation, where when I do my 10 minutes, I'm thinking about the time that the timer's on and all that. I'm not really focusing on it. And it's like try to get myself back into that kind of like habit of doing it properly. That's what it is, like you said. We're creatures of habit. And on the basis of what you were speaking about, I mean, you brought up some like phenomenal points, I think. So I guess the person you are now, what motto best applies to your life that you feel like you live by on a daily basis?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say for me, you know, it's sort of along the lines of make other people's lives better because yours will be better from that.
It's a really good motto, mate.
I try to make sure that the value I'm giving to others is something that they will benefit more than what I benefit from it.
Yeah.
So I try not to look for something in a conversation. I try not to get something out of someone. If something manages to happen out of a conversation, great. But the first sort of thing for me is how can I give them value? And even if they can't give anything back, then at least you've let them go away thinking good about themselves. And I mean, what better feeling really can you get other than that, you know?
That's a great motto, mate. And the thing is, I knew this would be good, right? Because no matter what on the checking calls that you have, no matter how complicated the question I ask you, there's never a what or I don't understand or any sort of like you never delay your answer. You just have a good long think about it, mate, and your answer on it's phenomenal. And I think that when I think back to my 18, 19-year-old self, I wanted that faceless brand. I wanted nobody to know who I was. I wanted to roll up in Glasgow in my Ferrari and still nobody know who I was. And nobody would, even when I got in my car, nobody would know what I was doing, why I had that car. Everyone most likely think that I'm like leasing it or renting it for like a day or whatever. Yeah. And I love that kind of shit because I love the fact that nobody knew where I got to be, and it was my idea of it was through day trading, through the foreign exchange market. I became obsessed with it and that kind of stuff. And I think that it's weird because it's kind of like that whole one man's trash is a man's treasure. In a way with life, whatever you have an abundance of, you usually want the opposite of it.
Yeah.
So when I think about when I was trading, I felt like I didn't have as much purpose.
Right.
Because everything I was doing was just for me. My why wasn't that big. Because it probably taught me a lot about myself. Because if my why's not big enough for me to do something just for me, then what's going on there? Why do you not value yourself above whatever it may be? And that was when I realised that a lot of the results a lot of positive results that had came from me in my life was through the bringing together of a good environment. Now I'm not talking about relying on other people for happiness. I'm talking about the purpose that can be brought from knocking ideas out, bringing out the best in the people that are around you. It's almost like you were saying, like we're creatures of habit.
Yeah.
That whole, I mean, I know people that can't go like without a day without a social interaction, whereas for me, I could go a couple of weeks, mate. I'm quite introverted, and like I kind of love that part about me. And it's weird because now I run a network, a business network, and I stream full time, so my days are full with just speaking to people, mate. It's the polar opposite, and it's probably why I do need those couple of days to charge my batteries, mate. Because I went the exact opposite, where I used to say I used to have an extrovert battery. I used to say it to Scott all the time.
Right.
My extrovert battery's empty, bro. I'm going home, mate. And that would be it, bro. I'd go home. I
like that, actually. I really like that.
And I'd go home and that was it, bro. I'd sit, I'd turn my phone off, like the full shebang, and I'd just sit and I'd watch whatever I wanted to watch, mate. Whatever TV series I was watching. And now it's the polar opposite, mate. Almost. And that's probably a good answer to my question about the 3 days off aspect.
Yeah.
Because I hate the concept of being on your phone 24/7. I hate the whole social construct around weekends. And it's almost like I just try and do everything that everyone else isn't doing. And I think that's where my attitude kind of varies, where I work the weekends because I know nobody else is.
Yeah.
Or I work nights even though I go up at 5:30 because I know nobody else is. And I went back holidays and actually put the shift in because I know everyone else is chilling.
Yeah.
But what do I actually get from that? Because I don't feel rejuvenated. I just feel like I'm satisfied with the fact that I'm grinding that bit more. But I'm grinding at lower output. So that's where my brain's in limbo, mate. Because it is, man. It is
challenging. But as we said and as we mentioned earlier, we always have the answer.
Yeah.
It's just if we were able to ask the better question or the best question for ourselves. So you have that answer. You've got that sort of battery that goes down. And with now you, the polar opposite of what you used to be, you still have that sort of mechanic of being the introvert. You still have that fundamental. You'll never lose that. And maybe it is time away from everyone and everything that can give you that clarity. And it doesn't have to be that long. It could literally just be at night.
Yeah.
You've just got to make sure that when you are working those nights and when you are getting up really, really early to then do all of this stuff, working the weekends, working the bank holidays, if that is going to give you what you desire, what you truly desire. And I'm not just meaning like, I'm working more than everyone else, I'm going to get to where I want to go. It's got to be, is this going to make my life the way I want it to be?
Yeah.
And if it's not, then you've got to rethink that and probably have an uncomfortable conversation with yourself.
And it's that whole and I've just got to the 6th chapter of the subtle art of not giving a fuck.
Love it.
And that chapter is all about how everything we think is wrong and how everything he thinks is wrong and how nobody's actually got a grasp of the reality. And it's the pure polar opposite of like your belief system, but it's fucked sitting reading it, mate. I'm reading it and I'm like, great. Holy shit, this is so like challenging for your thought process. And it's like, and I see why a lot of people couldn't read that book, because people struggle with having like no grasp on like purpose or why they're here.
Yeah.
Like, the answer, there is no answer. We don't know why we're here. So like, and like the construct we've got in place at the moment in a world that is, well, in most nations that are mainly dominated by capitalism, what everything we do is to generate money and wealth and all that kind of stuff. But that was just a kind of, could you call it a social construct? It's not. It was something that, getting back to hunter-gatherer times, when it was you got up and you hunted, and if you didn't catch your food, then you died.
Yeah.
Like that was the most subtle.
Yeah, that was it.
That was So like, we've got this whole like abundance. We've got an abundance of pretty much everything: food, entertainment, things like TikTok are the most crazy, addicting. You've literally got, honestly, mate, see if people were as creative as what they are on TikTok in content creation as they are in business or in life, they would go to levels that they never thought they would hit, mate. Some of the videos I see on there, every video I see on there, mate, that's on that For You page or whatever it may be, is at such a high level of creativity, mate. Honest to God. And some of them are stupid, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, of
but
course.
A lot of them, mate, the levels of creativity that people go to is phenomenal. And if they applied it to their life, and it was why the Neville Ravikant theory about how everybody can be rich and wealthy, everybody on this planet, his take on it, I now believe it's just a matter of like, it would force people, you're almost, like his take on it was that or Joe Rogan's take on it was that you need to lead the horse to the water and then force them to drink. And it's like, it would require people to put in work, and most people don't, some people don't want to put in work in it. It's a kind of concept that the creative mind, mate, and if everyone is just as creative, we could get to a place that was so advanced. I think so, anyways.
Yeah, everyone can be successful, I believe, anyway. I think everyone has something that they would really enjoy to do and can make them extremely successful. But the reason the world is the way it is because that's not the case. You know, most people are not willing to push that comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing, you know. We have to understand that it is a balance. You know, if everyone was wealthy, no one would be wealthy. You know, there would always be a hierarchy, especially when money is the way that most people define success, you know. So I fully agree in the sense that everyone has the creativity to make whatever they want their complete life success if they choose to do so. Most just don't, and that's the simple fact. You know, you can only help someone so far, and you can't often force feed the horse to drink the water or anything like that. They've got to make that decision on themselves. They've got to come up with that theory, and it's something from How to Win Friends and Influence People. Honestly believe it's my favorite book of all time, and it's just that understanding that people need to think of the solution by themselves. They need to decide in their own mind, this is the solution, I'm going to take action on it, because else it's just some idiot telling them what the solution is and them saying fuck you and going away. And nothing ever happens at that point.
No, I couldn't agree more. And it's like, the first thing that springs to my mind is like investing, for example. If someone was to invest, if someone was to message you and go, hey Andrew, I think I should invest in Bitcoin, what do you think? And your take on it was, the most logical take on it is that make sure you do your research, make sure you know what you're investing in, make sure that you actually have a plan in place. You're not just investing because everyone else is investing. And say Bitcoin was to rise, and you were to say to them, say you were to give a piece of advice, and you were to say, I think Bitcoin's going to rise, and off the back of that, make sure you do your research though. Don't just invest because other people are doing it. And they invest in it without doing their research, and it does rise. They're going to look at it in a way where, you know, I've made X amount of money. It's kind of like a gambling kind of attitude. You know, I win X amount, I'm going to be able to win more and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if it crashes, you know, you're the devil. You're the devil to him, innit? You're the devil to them. And it's like the only way in which a lesson can be learned from investing or through anything in life is through the kind of experience that would come with investing, where you get your fingers burnt. You invest X amount, you lose it all, and then you sit there and you're burning, and make you feel terrible. You know what's going on. You thought the whole world's crashing down upon you. You've lost X amount of capital, and you're sitting there wondering why. And then your why usually leads you to, I'm never going to do this ever again, which then leads you to never touching any sort of investment portfolio ever again, which then leads you to a life of working for a salary, and that's pretty much it. And it's a crazy concept, mate. A crazy concept, and the lessons can only be learned, I feel like, through that whole negative aspect. And I can't remember who it was recently that I watched about that you were talking about the things you remember on your deathbed. It's like, in order for you to get to a level that you want to get to, the suffering and the shit that you go through is all so badly needed in order for you to grow as an individual in it. And
they're the best things.
Yeah,
they are. They're the things that help you grow the most over the long run. I spoke about this in a podcast episode a while back on whether or not failure is actually making you better.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting, and I agree with you to an extent. There's some parts I'm a little bit on a different spectrum in that front, and I'd love to discuss it further.
Yeah.
So I believe that winning and being successful teaches you great lessons on how to replicate your results. So you gain experience through the work that you've done. And then with failure and with unsuccessful attempts, there's two different types of people. There's one who understands that this pain will go away, and in the future, it will be a great lesson on how to not do it for the next time. And there's the others who say, as you mentioned before, nope, never doing this again. I'm never taking a risk. I'm never jumping. And that's the people we don't want to be. So I think success and failure can both teach you lessons. Success more so in the short term of gaining that experience. Failure over the long term, because at the time of actually failing, it hurts like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
That could be in your personal life or your business life. You know, there's a lot of things that go wrong there. But during that time, you are not thinking, wow, I'm so happy I failed. You know, you're down. You're sort of like, how did I do this so wrong? Or how did something like this go wrong?
Yeah.
But you have to remember that both of them are very valuable lessons. You just can't be that third person who says, I'm never doing this again because something went wrong. Because the reality is, sometimes you can do everything right and still fail.
Yeah.
And it's such a bad thing to say. But the difference from the people who are genuinely successful and not is when they do everything right and fail, they still get back on the horse and try something else or try again.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier said than done. But to me, success and failure can both teach you great lessons. The experience of doing all of it is the one that gets you everything that you've ever needed. And you're right, it's the action that determines it, not the consumption.
Yeah, 100%. I think that it's that kind of way. It's like we refer to the whole, you know what I mean, making the horse drink. If you make the horse drink, like the lesson or the drinking of the water doesn't really solidify like any sort of like repetition of them being able to do it again in something like investing, for example.
Yeah.
If I say invest, and for if there was any sort of advice that you would give, and you would invest, or for example you would relate it to life in itself, you know, take that risk. They take that risk, and then they hold you accountable, and you don't hold any sort of responsibility. And that's what the fine line is, mate, with streaming especially. And you'll understand that with your experience in streaming as well, mate, that there's such a fine line between what you can really say directly to somebody.
Yeah.
And because it's so easy for people to pass accountability, pass responsibility to someone else. Everything that happens is because of, you know, my upbringing, my trauma, what I went through. And don't get me wrong, man, most of that shit, just like Mark Manson speaks about, he touches on it so well, mate. And he's somebody that is almost like put my thought process to writing, mate. Yeah. Like, I've never understood how to describe it to someone without feeling like a dick. But the truth is, he just owns that, mate. He's like, I'm a dick. And that's it. And it's And I think that could lead us into the question in terms of, because you were referring to your failure, any failure that you've had.
Yeah.
So anything that you've went through in life that you regret?
Regret? No. I mean, I guess there's some things when it comes to like personal relationships. In the past I wouldn't tell a girl that I liked her and I wanted to have a relationship or something like that front. But regret in terms of my business, no, because everything I've done was outside my comfort zone, and that's the best thing I could have done. Even if it went shit up and nothing happened, I'm so glad I've done it, because it has helped me become who I am today, the person I've always wanted to be, and I'm no longer afraid of that.
No, 100%, mate. I think it's such a good take, because it's kind of similar actually to what I have. There's no point in regretting anything that's happened in the past, because it's made you who you are today. Yeah. I could very easily regret the 18-year-old self that I was. There's no point. Yeah. There's literally no point whatsoever.
Wouldn't do anything. Wouldn't change anything now.
Exactly, mate. And I think that when I think to... That's such a good train of thought of where I was going to go with the regret aspect. It's just slipped my mind, mate. I had such a good train of thought, mate, and I was holding on to it for dear life, mate. And it's funny because you've done a post on this not too long ago, about people holding their tongue when they're sitting speaking to somebody. Yeah. Because a lot of people can't help but jump in.
Yeah.
And it was I was just sitting there thinking on it. It'll come back to me.
You'll get it at 4 a.m. You'll just text me. It's sound.
I know. I actually will, mate. I'll need to drop it in the podcast. I'll hop off my setup, sit here topless, mate, my Yoda dressing gear on, start whacking it in. Since I forgot, anyways, we'll move on to something completely different, mate. Yeah, what is the stupidest thing you've ever spent your money on?
Oh, stupidest thing I've ever spent my money on. Try to look around the room, see if there's anything absolutely stupid that I've bought.
I got this question from the Optic Hex podcast. It took a lot of inspiration from his 600 seconds. This was one of the questions that was asked, and it was always one of the most entertaining.
It's your best thing I've ever bought. What is the dumbest thing I've ever bought? I don't know. I really don't know. I'm trying to look around to see what I've got, but the thing is, I done a massive clear out a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And I just I love the sort of minimalist things.
Yeah.
So everything that just didn't mean anything to me, I chucked away.
Yeah.
Let me go on to you. What's the stupidest thing you've ever bought, and I'll think about it.
Well, the thing is, right, see, and I'll put it on to the people that I've seen before, right, because I think that we've not got enough life experience to really have something that we've really regretted buying. Because in order to regret buying something, I think you need to have a level of wealth. My attitude towards money and your attitude towards money is very similar to mine, where I always think about what is going to get me to where I want to be. For example, I bought my car. Well, I got my car, and I've wanted to do so much work to it, mate, and I've done no work to it. And the main reason why is because there's no point. It's not going to get me to where I want to be. It's a fucking car. So what is the point in using any cash that I'm making and not invest it in myself or my business and invest it into my car? It's the most stupidest thing ever. And I'm not going to get into that trap of doing that. So I think that probably, and that's obviously came from studying accountancy and with your background in it as well. I think that's why we don't really have something that we have really looked at and thought that's a mad regret. I think about I mean, even money I spend on nights out, mate, I don't even spend that much, mate. I can go out on 50 quid, mate.
Yeah, I get drunk really quickly, so I don't need to spend that much.
I could go out, I mean, especially on student nights, mate, I'd go out with 40, 50 quid, mate, and I'd be sound, mate.
Yeah, 100%.
There was no... Because a lot of dancers that I've seen were American based, were bottle service, cars.
Yeah.
Most people from the UK, for example, it's designer clothes, stuff like that. I've never really bought anything that's
same
like that, mate, where it's hit my bank. I mean, I think back to and it's so mad because you think about where we're programming. Every Christmas, mate, I used to get all my dough and I'd roll in Boxing Day. I'd spend it all, mate. Spend it all. I was 13, I'd roll in, mate. Bit of Asylum, JD, pure cake my closet out, mate, thinking I'm a bad man. But in fact, it actually fills me out a bit of heart rate, mate. I was almost embarrassed telling people that. Fucking hell. It's a time that is, mate, splashing cash, bro. Such the opposite.
I've never really had that. I don't buy designer clothes. Like, I'm not into that.
Yeah.
My car is the car I've had since my brother bought it in 2013, and I've got it now, and I'm gonna keep it until it dies. The only thing I can think of is like subscriptions I forgot to cancel. Like my Nintendo Switch subscription, I forgot to cancel it 3 times in a row, and it took money out. And it's not even that much, but it's just like there's nothing I would say over the last few years since I took accountancy when I left school. There's nothing I've bought that's really big and thought this was shit. This was such a waste of money.
Yeah.
There's obviously things like I bought a course. Like when I first started streaming, I bought a course on like email automation, and it was being able to create a funnel system for emails.
Yeah.
And at the time, I hadn't really known much about it. I just wanted to learn from experts. So I guess that could be, but then again, I've even got a bloody Instagram reel coming out about it. Anything you buy when it comes to your knowledge isn't a loss, because even if you think on it, you're not going to take action, you're still learning who you don't want to be. And you need to do that when you're educating yourself. You know, you're going to take things that are just not worth your time. So I guess that's the only but then again, no, it's not. I can't think. My Nintendo Switch subscription, that's the best answer you're getting, sadly. So it's such a letdown.
That is such an accurate. Somebody that's like accountancy, it's made me really think that, like, I think my attitude towards money, obviously it changed with Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. That was the main turning point. But because I realised that everything that we think about, especially growing up, is just the verbal programming of our parents. And I think about like the way in which I was taught to handle money in a way. My dad, massive saver, hoard cash, really tight. My mum, spender. You love spending. So like I would save for a long period of time and just splash it all, mate. Something like Christmas, for example, like get a large amount of money and just splash it. And it's like, I think that was when I picked up that book, I realised, right, what is what I want to do with money? What is what I think is best with money? And that's when I really started to, I started studying accountancy, and my SAS, for example, when I was at college, I was gaming, so I was competing in college, so I didn't work. That was like where my income was coming from. It varied massively. Some months I'd make nothing, some months I'd make X amount. And so I got £395 a month from SAS, and that was it. That's what I had to live off. So like my budget on that, being able to budget that, I had money left over each month, mate. Like, because I learned how to live on such minimal, that I was like, right, cool, this is easy then. Because I learned how to live on such minimal cash. I know a lot of people will listen to that and go, there's no way I could live on that. I've got rent, I've got this, I've got that. And I was still staying with my mum, so like, it was optional, but I mean, I know a lot of people that still stay with their parents and they don't budget at all, so
they splash everything.
And it's kind of what the question I was going to lead it to was, what do you think that studying accountancy has gave you a massive benefit in your attitude towards money, or do you think you got it from somewhere else?
I studied accountancy in high school as well, so I done in like 4th year to 6th year, I done it, or fourth and 5th year I done accountancy, and then 6th year I done business. So yes, to an extent. After that, I started to become interested in business, and finances was a big thing that I learned about from the get-go. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was one of the first audiobooks I got. And this was when I wasn't reading and I wasn't really like improving myself. So I listened to that book, honestly, about 35 to 40 times on Audible, just over and over again. And I realised how important your financial literacy is. And even the smallest things. See, just having a budget, you actually create so much freedom. And my brother and I were talking, he's about to become, he's about to graduate to become a teacher. So he's budgeted what he's going to be earning and what he's going to be, where he's going to be putting his money. And just doing that, you're able to get a form of control over your life way before anyone else can. I do believe that accountancy and that helped me. And I wish everyone got taught it. But if there's one lesson that anyone can ever take, whether you're in school or not, learn to budget. That's all you need to do. because once you realize how much money you can save, you're going to think, okay, how can I make this money make me more money then?
Yeah.
And that's when you go into the rabbit hole of making more financial literacy, something that we all need. 99% of people don't have because they just don't know. We've never been taught. The only available programming we have is from our parents. So we need to break out of that a little bit and ask ourselves questions that what we really want to do with our money.
And that's where people got it twisted in it, where in terms of, I mean, we're the first generation in it where we're no longer looking to our parents for the answers for anything in terms of, because the world's evolved so much, we're in the information era, we've got everything at the tip of our fingers and that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
But it's also, I mean, I'll never forget when I started trading, for example, I started becoming obsessed with it. I started following a guy, Sam Kavanagh, on Instagram. And later, about 2 years after following him, I had a meeting with him in Costa, and it was just to do with YN. After I started YN, I wanted to work with him. And it was so funny because a friend I had at the time used to go to school with him. And I remember I asked her how Sam got to where he is today.
Yeah.
And her answer was that he had rich parents.
Right.
Like, that was how he got to where he was today. And I thought, right, okay. And I thought, I don't know how true that is, because that's what everyone's take is. If someone makes it when they're young, they mostly had rich parents, and then it's been given to them, is their attitude. It's that kind of jealousy aspect. So when I sat down and I met him, he started his first business when he was 16.
Yeah.
And it was an I mean, if you listen to this, it's going to mistake me on it. I believe it was an army telecommunications devices. Wow. He would make them from scratch. I can't even recall what the experience, how he got there, or what it may be. And he turned over X amount of money, and off the back of that, his business kind of hit a stalemate because people started selling similar products at a much cheaper rate to what it was.
Right.
So his business kind of had a stalemate. But while his business was making X amount, he decided to leave college. And when he was leaving college, it was actually the opposite of what his parents wanted him to do. At least I believe that's what I can recall, because it was like a couple of years before lockdown was when I had that meeting with him. So it's a while ago. So if I muck up it and Sam, mate, you can out me on it. But from everything that I gathered, it was all off the back of his own doing whatsoever. And all the cash that he made from that business, he was like, right, cool, where do I want to move into now? And that's when he looked at Forex. And the same thing happened to me. Hopped into Forex, got scammed, and the attitude was, right, cool, how do I make sure that this never happens to me or anyone I know ever again? And the same with me, I became obsessed with it. He became obsessed with it, and he ended up finding a mentor that he paid. He used his capital to pay his mentor to teach him everything that he knew. And it took his business to a level that was obviously where it is today, where he runs a trading consultancy business. He's got a trading floor. His business is hitting levels. I mean, he's 21. He's fucking nuts, mate. Absolutely nuts, man.
That's amazing.
I know, mate. And I think that it is that kind of like, obviously it's jealousy, but also at the same time it's the, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the ignorance. That nobody can achieve something at such a young age. Nobody can make anything happen at such a young age. And everything's handed to them. Whereas we are the first generation, mate, where we can go out and we can make anything, if anything we want fucking happen, mate. I speak about it on stream all the time, mate, and people always an answer on it. It's always an answer why someone can't do something rather than why somebody can.
There's always excuses.
100%, mate. So in terms of like the information here, I know you done a reel on it, I believe, about how it's like the paradox of choice in it.
Yeah.
People have less information, but they don't take any action on it.
Yeah.
See this stuff. See everything that you're teaching, or the coach that you're trying to be. Obviously, is that from you deciding one day that you're going to use all the information that you have at the tip of your fingers and implement it in a way that makes you authentic, makes it relating to your one self, and you've took advantage of the fact that we're in the information era? Or do you think that was something that was kind of solidified from an early stage in your life?
There was certain aspects I think everyone takes from the early stage of their life. I've always been quite a confident person at speaking to people. I've always loved understanding people, the way they speak, the way they handle themselves, the way they take action, and all of that helped collectively bring me to where I am. I've definitely took advantage of the information era. I mean, we can learn from people like Warren Buffett,
Yeah.
even people who are dead, with all of their findings from a book or from Google. You know, there's so much there.
Yeah.
And it's actually it's a term I deemed passive motivation with what I was saying in terms of people consuming so much but never taking action on it.
Yeah.
So to where I got today, I realized that my life was passively motivated.
Yeah.
All I did was consume, got a little bit, motivated about what they were doing, and then I was like, yeah, I can't do that. So it was like 3 years ago I decided, fuck it. Like, what is the worst that will happen if I take this jump? And at the time, the biggest fear was being bullied for doing something that was different, which was Twitch at the time. After that jump, I realized it wasn't actually that scary. It was nowhere near as scary as you thought it was, but you put this reality in your head that it's going to be 11 and 12 on this fear scale, when in reality it's maybe only like a 3 or 4. But the lessons you learn are way, way above that. So I've definitely took advantage of the information era, but I believe that the way that I've got to today is because of the actions that I've taken. And the reason why I'm wanting to do what I do is because I've done it through experience. And I think that's what people often forget. They try to teach everything they're doing before they've had the experience, and they want to rush it because we have so much information at our fingertips. And that's where the line is a little bit dodgy, because people are trying to become experts without ever experiencing it. I'm not saying that someone who reads everything couldn't be an expert on the topic, but you learn different lessons from using the experiences that you've had personally, because then you can mold them into a story that is authentic, as you said, that is you, and then it can actually help people understand on a human to human basis rather than a human to Google. It's two different ball games.
Completely understand, mate. I couldn't agree more, and I think it's because like when I look at the content that we put out, for example, it's the kind of content that it's not necessarily that one step that, for example, I done a post today and it was about like I said, the pessimistic, like who I was when I was 18, and it also was, what I took away from it was like how often does anyone really look at who they became today and like really actual, like, having shown any sort of compassion or gratitude or whatever towards themselves. How often are people actually grateful for what they're experiencing on a day-to-day basis? How often are people actually, that's where the gratitude journals come in for me, mate. That there were nights and I feel like I've achieved nothing and I'm not grateful for anything, and it's like, what the fuck am I talking about, mate? Like, I'm not grateful for what? You could strip it all the way down from relationships and whatever it may be to the fact that I've got 4 limbs and I've got a house over my head and all that kind of stuff. There's always something to be grateful for.
100%.
And I think the gratitude journal's gonna help me with that kind of aspect, because now, even outside the gratitude journal, I'll just be sitting and something will happen, anything will happen or nothing will happen, even just now, grateful for the fact that we're sitting here. I look at my setup nowadays, mate. I used to sit and play on a tiny little unit, mate, on an LG monitor that wasn't a monitor, it was actually a TV, 10 millisecond display response time. And it's like, when I first got my setup, it's like that whole instant, oh my god, this is my setup, and then it all just kind of dwindles away. And you just get used to it. And it is that kind of like, it's a crazy time, mate, because you can, when you get into that state of mind that we're in, where you're grateful for so much that's happening, you're constantly in a good state of mind. And when you do hit that kind of low, the habits and the self-discipline, like you were saying, like passive motivation, kind of Paul Elliott's take on it when he came in and spoke, I've carried that with me since that event, and it's about the whole, motivation is temporary, self-discipline's forever. So in the days where I feel like shit, habits are like, right, cool, habits are still going to keep me going. I'm not going to sit here and convince myself that I can take a day off because I've got a bit of a sore head. Like, don't bullshit yourself, or just fucking get up and do your stretches, mate, or don't go for a walk, or read, or do something that's going to get your mind ticking, because you're one tick away from, I mean, I look at like YN becoming a reality, mate. Like, one call, was all it took before YN started snowballing, and it's got to where, and I think
Look at where you're at now.
exactly, mate. And the content that we put out, or at least for me, anyways, there's no way that we could change someone's life just from that one video. But the butterfly effect, technically, the butterfly effect from that could change someone's life, which technically means our video could change someone's life.
Yeah.
But the overall action afterwards, I had a guy DM me today speaking about cold showers and how much cold showers has benefited him, and how he's been doing them for like 6 weeks, and the level of clarity he's achieved from it has been phenomenal. Whatever he does after that, like, there's no, like, it's him. It's the actions on him, and it's like that whole lead the horse to the water, get them to feed as well. It's where it makes what we're doing quite difficult.
Yeah.
In a way, and it's accepting that, and what you were saying about the whole, like, starting streaming, billion, that kind of shit. That was what stopped me from pursuing gaming fully when I was 16-ish. Took some time away from COD because the 18 plus rule came in. Couldn't go to events anymore. Started playing Destiny. It's fucking nuts, mate. Absolutely nuts. And I'm not one to toot my own horn when it comes to gaming. Everyone that knows the amount of times I've dedicated to it will know how good I am. But in terms of Destiny, I was at a level where, like, just nobody could touch me, and it was a game that there was such a large skill gap on it, and I just got there before everyone else. And I started pushing out content, and I instantly started getting the piss ripped at me, mate. And it was enough for me to just stop.
Yeah.
And that'll be a regret for me, stopping then. But at the same time, if I did push out the content then, yes, I could be more successful from a YouTube standpoint or a content creation standpoint. I could have a bigger platform and that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't have went down the path that I took to get me to where I am today. Maybe never started YN. You have never started streaming from a COD basis. Who knows where we could be in it? I could be, I don't know, the butterfly effect of what it may be. So for me, that was probably my biggest regret, but also that Mark Manson quote, the fact that we're not actually that important.
Yeah.
People don't actually care about us as much as we think.
No.
Something that I've carried with us a lot. For example, yesterday, I pulled out in front of somebody when I shouldn't have pulled out in front of somebody at a roundabout. Bamped my horn, like, he bamped his horn, he was raging at me. Jack in my seat was pure buckling, and I was like, oof, guy's fucking raging in it. And if I was an anxious kind of guy, or if I cared about the fact that guy was bamping his horn at me, he was raging at me. But the truth is, man, he just takes his exit. Yeah, he's fuming for a bit, but just like that, his worries are back elsewhere, and he's doing whatever he has to do. You're not actually that important to what you create. So I guess that leads me to, who's been the greatest influence in your life, and how much have they actually impacted you, and where, to be fair, have they actually impacted you?
I would say the biggest impact in my life was my brother.
Yeah.
After my mum had passed, I got really close with my brother for a time period, and then especially over the last few years, as we've both grown up, he's now 25, so we got a lot closer and talking with one another and our ambitions and goals and all that sort of stuff. And Craig was the first one to support me. Craig is my brother, by the way. Sorry, I should clarify that. He was the first one to support me in everything that I was doing. When I was doing Twitch, when I wanted to quit, when I stopped streaming, when I stopped posting on certain social medias, when I changed to wanting to become this coach, you know, he was the first one to listen and to hear me out and to give his opinion and to tell me that no matter what I was doing, he would back me. And I think that support system changed my life for the better, because although once I left school, when I took the jump into streaming and all that sort of stuff, people could bully me all they want. I don't know if they did. I never really got negative things because I didn't really tell anyone what I was doing for the first year. But Craig was always there to support me, no matter what. He came to my streams when there was no one watching. He talked to me. He hyped me up when I done really well. I remember one of the times when I think I reached 50 subs for the first time ever on stream, and I went downstairs to get something to eat, and he was waiting there, and he just had this massive smile on his face, and he gave me an incredible high five and like just congratulating me. And I think that support system just changed my life for the better, because I was able to believe in myself before I actually did. You know, he was able to show me that people actually do believe in what I do, and I've just got to believe myself a little bit more.
Yep.
So he is definitely to this day still the biggest impact and the most important person for me moving forward with all of this.
Right, yes, mate. I mean, it's kind of like a bit speechless, mate, to be fair, because it's something that's like very close to you, clearly, mate, like in any way, shape or form. And I think those sort of things, one, it's just phenomenal in it to have someone supporting you on that level.
Really is.
And one of the reasons to why I'm like here where I am today, because without the support system around me, there was a place in business where I didn't believe I belonged here. Just because of the people that I was meeting. They were nothing like me. And I think without the correct support network, without the correct people around you, without someone to just be your biggest supporter, fuck me, man, when the going gets tough, mate, it can be really hard, mate. It can be really hard, man, and it's easy to look at. I mean, I spoke a bit about something I said on social media, and it was a girl was saying about, and the way in which she put it, I get why people would be pissed off at her, but she put it across in a way that was, I guess, relating to basically calling people out for what they're doing on their day-to-day life. You know, about the fact that when on her bank holidays, let's put it, I can't remember exactly how it's worded, but it's basically like on her bank holidays, she's doing self-development. On her weekends, she's working on her business. On her weekdays or weeknights, she's going to the gym and all that kind of stuff. And she basically just put at the end, you're going out at the weekend, you're working on 85, we're not the fucking same, is what she put on it, right? And I was like, you can understand like how I could get some sort of conflict, mate. But the guy just a guy quoted the tweet, and basically just ripped her as an individual, ripped her as how she looked, ripped her as what she was doing, and basically just like tore it to shreds pretty much. And her original tweet had 1,000 to 2,000 likes.
Right.
His tweet had over 100,000, and it'd been up for 2 days. And if that doesn't tell you a lot about society, I mean, in terms of responsibility, if a tweet is getting you riled up to the point where you have to tear someone to shreds in order to make yourself feel better, at what level of responsibility do you need to look at yourself and think about what the fuck you've got going on in your life? And it's that kind of does the shoe fit kind of shit in it. If that's jarring you to the point where you're reading it and you want to put a tweet where you're going to, you know, slaughter somebody in levels that, you know, could result in anything, mate. Could result in anything with the way in which things happen in this day and age. What level are you going to look at the fact that most of it is probably truthful? And he probably resents himself. And how many people in this day and age resent what they're doing and cover it up by taking the piss out of others, not taking a step into taking any sort of risk, sticking to the norm, doing every sort of social construct there is, getting hammered at the weekends, escaping reality, doing every drug under the sun. Like, at what point will anyone really actually look at like what they're doing and decide to take any sort of active change? I don't know if it will ever be the case, and that's why the whole Neville Ravikant theory, I don't think it will ever become a proper reality to the way in which I would love it to be, because the majority is that. It's sad, mate. It's fucked because you don't. If everyone just supported each other or made everything constructive, and that's why, especially in gaming, especially in life, especially in business, speaking down to someone, speaking to them like a piece of shit, I don't care who the fuck you are, mate. It's not, or what way you think it works in your head. It's not. It's very rarely, depending on every program, it's very rarely going to bring out the best in them, especially if you don't know them that well.
Why? No, I agree with you. It's obviously her tweet. In reality, they aren't the same. You know, because everyone is different. If she wants to develop herself and go to the gym and all that, great. And if that person doesn't want to do that, then that's fine too. That's the thing. That's why we're all unique and different, and it's great. And it does come back to the, obviously, in a way, it seems like her ego, you know, gets the better of her. And that's when it can become a problem for a lot of people, because there's a fine line between being egotistical and confident. You know, you've got to understand that you've got to be humble with what you do. You know, you don't. It's always the one I go back to. You know, a positive person and a nice person doesn't have to show that they're nice.
Yeah.
They just are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the guy who quote tweeted it, and as you were saying, you know, a lot of people are usually using it as a mask to hide their own insecurities or things that have gone wrong in their life. Now, some people it probably isn't. You know, some people are going to be extremely knowledgeable with what they do, and maybe in some sense the way she worded it, it was sort
Tickled
of coming
a couple
from,
of feathers.
From the other side. But the problem is that whenever someone does retaliate back or says something like that, people often don't want to ask the hard questions themselves.
Yeah.
And there was an amazing thing in How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it was basically about, I can't exactly remember the quote, but it was saying you shouldn't complain about the snow on the roof of your neighbours when you've not even checked your front doorstep. You know, you need to look at yourself first and your house and your foundation before you go and complain about anyone else, because looking inward is going to make the biggest change. Complaining about other people, making fun of other people, bringing other people down, in the long run is not going to do anything for you. You might get some gratification in the very, very short term, but at the end of the day, no one ever wins an argument. You know, you both lose. It's just the reality of it. It's whether or not people are willing to accept that as the case or not.
See, it's just gotten to the point though where I'm so open-minded and also like open-minded and less caring. I just don't care that much about something like that, for example. To me, it's so, no matter what somebody says to me, I can always put myself in a light. I mean, you look at it, like Gary Vee always speaks about it. Someone was to like abuse him verbally, he goes to the root of compassion. I'm kind of the same, mate, to be fair, because I think about what is going on with them, what is going on in their life. Why would they be speaking to me like that? If I'm driving and I've got the music blaring and somebody comes out their house, true story, comes out their house and shouts and balls at me for having my music too loud, what's really going on in their life in order for that to really be that much of a bad influence on them? And that's kind of the level that I go to, where what are people's priorities in that kind of front, and how, and just having a bit of compassion for them rather than retaliating in any sort of way, shape or form. I never care enough to retaliate. There was obviously a line where you cross that line, mate, I'm not going to have any time for you. Yeah. It's kind of my attitude towards it, and that's where I leave it at that. And I think I kind of learned that from Scott, mate. Remember me and Scott, and for anyone that doesn't know, Scott's been my best mate since we were like 15. Yeah. And Scott's attitude, when we were having this conversation, and it was something to do with like just betrayal. Somebody was doing something that was just questionable and that kind of stuff. And we kind of got into the topic of conversation, and me and Scott getting all kinds of funky topics. But it was like, I remember I was sitting and I was saying to him, what if I done that? Just a pure like throwing mad question, mate. We'll be driving and he'll turn around and he'll say to me, what are you thinking about just now? And I'll give him the most honest answer, like literally exactly what I'm thinking about. And if I'd done the same, it'd be the exact same. So these sort of questions, there's no like, oh, why is he asking that? Is that sus and all that kind of shit? Yeah. It was just a topic conversation at the time. And his attitude was wholeheartedly, if I betrayed him, he accepted it, and he'd move on, and that would be it. We'd never speak again. And it was like, I remember hearing it from him, and I was like, almost like hurt through my verbal programming at the time, because I was only like, what's that, 17-ish? I was like, fucking hell, man, just cut me like that rather than like hearing me out and all that. And the thing is, I would never ever do, because I look at my values and like what I put at the forefront. Yeah, of course. No way would I ever break anyone's trust or honesty. Yeah, exactly. But it was almost like, fucking hell, man, like even if something hit the fan or turmoil happened or whatever it may be, it was just like, his attitude was just like, it was just done. That was it. And I was just kind of like, isn't that the most logical, peaceful way to go about things for your own internal for your own well-being? Yeah. To have that kind of attitude. And that's why whenever I see shit in social media, when I'm playing COD or when I'm having a bad day or whatever it may be, just not caring that much about what's really going on allows me to kind of have a level of clarity and calmness. And I think it kind of all relates back to that exact moment. And it's weird how verbal programming shapes us, because that's me essentially being verbal programmed by like my best mate. And it's bettered my life on so many levels, mate, because it's allowed me to be okay with the fact that people in my life aren't going to be around forever. People in my life, I'm not going to spend that whole the complex of 5 and all that about 5-minute people, 50-minute people, and that kind of 5-hour people. It allowed me to be more okay with that, and to accept that, and to accept the fact that not everyone is going to be your person. Not everyone is going to love you for who you are. Not everyone's going to like you for who you are. Not everyone's going to be, you know, at a level where everyone on this planet fucking loves you. It's just not. It's not possible. And it allowed me, through that theory, to have a level of calmness that was just calmness about life, where nothing really mattered that much. Almost like, and I had someone in my chat, Gildy, Ian, he said that it's basically like, and I think the term he uses was like very subtle nullism, I think was what he spoke about. And it's a really good take on it, because it kind of is. It's accepting the fact that life isn't that important enough to care about the things that really don't matter. And I think that was a massive transformation, I think, in my life.
Yeah.
That it brought me to a level of calmness and clarity, like I said. What is your kind of take on that?
No, it's really interesting, and it is something I've been working on over the last few years, to not care so much. There's something I read a while back, and it was saying that you don't even like everyone, so why would you think everyone will like you? And I used to have that sort of issue of wanting everyone to like me and trying not to do anything that would hurt someone's feelings, but it came a point where, you know, when you try to hurt no one's feelings, you somehow hurt everyone's. You know, you say the wrong thing completely, or you do the wrong thing completely, and it somehow hurts everyone rather than the person that you should only care about in yourself. And it can be a little bit selfish at some points when you do that. And as obviously Scott said, that he would just let you go if you were to completely break his trust. But he's totally right. It's the best way to do it. You know, it is the most logical, and it makes the most sense for your own self. It's just, I think we've become so accustomed now, especially with social media, to try and belittle and take down and cancel other people who have done something wrong. And there's been a few people who I really looked up to in social media, and they've been sort of called out for their wrongdoings, and some of them were pretty bad, you know. But I never tweeted about them, you know. I never tried to bring them down further. I just merely unfollowed them, and then hopefully they improve their own lifestyle. And it's nothing on me, and if they do, great, and if they don't, fine too. It's not my problem, because at the end of the day, it's your own health that you've got to look after. It's your own self, surrounding yourself with the people who match your values and match who you are. And when those people who I looked up to lost that, then they lost that trust. You know, they lost that person to look up to, and they could just as well in the future earn it back from me personally. But one, they shouldn't care about my single opinion, and two, that may never happen. So to me, it doesn't bother me, and to them, I hope it doesn't bother them, because I wouldn't say anything to them, as there's no point. No one benefits from it, and they also have the chance to grow within internally in themselves, and hopefully they realize that after some of the mistakes that they make. And I think that's what people need to take maybe more away from things when they do lose friendships and all that sort of stuff. What can you take away from the friendship? Why did it happen? Was there something that I had done that I can improve upon as a person, as an individual, and stop trying to blame other things that is not the real answer?
Yep, 100%, mate. And I think, like, it's so easy to get caught up in like a relationship because there's so much emotion involved in it. That's the kind of that's the main problem with it all, is that when the emotions at the forefront, the decisions we make are usually, you know, wrong. Whatever we define as wrong. But, you know, I kind of live by the whole, like, don't make promises when you're happy, don't make decisions when you're angry. So anytime where I'm altering other on that state of mind, and I'll openly say this, and I know Jack will be okay with this. Jack we used to go out on the weekend, right? Say a Saturday, somebody would be having a gaff or something. Jack would be on the craziest drunken high. He'd come around me and he'd go, "John, town tomorrow, Nando's, 12 o'clock sharp, mate. Let's go get some fucking munch, bro. Let's have a good day at it. We'll go and, you know, we'll go and do this and this and blah blah blah." I'd go, yes, Jack, mate, no worries, bro. I'm fucking up for that, mate. And I'd wake up the next day, I'd get my shower, I'd text him, no response. I'd phone him, no picking up. Text him again, no response. And I'd be like, right, Jack's not woke up, or Jack's extremely hungover. And Jack just wouldn't tell me, mate. And I remember saying to him, I was like, bro, you don't have to make these crazy promises to me, mate. Like, I'm okay with the fact, like, if you just text me and just go, I'm not feeling too good today, mate. That's it. I'm completely fine with that, bro. And I remember and that's what's always stuck in my mind when I think about the never making promises when I'm happy. I'll never do it, because when I'm on that crazy high, mate, where the world can not touch me in any way, shape or form, you never know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
And for Jack, mate, he used to do it all the time, mate. It wouldn't surprise me if he was still brutal for it just now, mate. Honest to God, but it was something that always stuck with me, and it was just something you were speaking about as well in terms of values and stuff like that. Almost like created a theory off the back of like Scott's theory about the colour wavelength theory that I put out on a tweet and stuff like that. And it's essentially like where all the people that have the same values as you, all the people that have the same values as you, all the people that want to be the same place as you, all the people that are just as inspired as you, the people that are when I think about, for example, my ideal client avatar, like the people that I enjoy working with the most in terms of my yin, I look at people like Blair, yourself, Isabel, Lizzie, everyone that's a part of like the founding member aspect. They're all so easy to work with. So when I think about, in terms of understanding people more, and this kind of came from inspiration from the 10 Pillars of Wealth by Alex Becker as well, his attitude towards the abundance mindset, because his first ever job or first ever business when he came out of the Navy SEALs, I want to say, or something like that, or the Navy, was teaching guys to pick up girls. That was his business.
Fair play.
And he's a new generation entrepreneur. He's 31 when I read the book, and he was 27 when he created it. So he's quite a young generation book. And everything I took away from that was the abundance mindset. You know, there's 3.5 billion females on this planet. You may as well be yourself, because eventually one's going to come along and they're going to love you for who you are and that kind of shit. Blah blah blah. And the colour wavelength theory was almost like the only thing that I could make logical sense of, that even like on paper technically isn't that logical, but for example, see me and you are the colour red. We get on, we're on the same wavelength, we have the same values, we want to be the same places at a certain extent. But as a matter of fact, to be the same colour. So because I used to never understand how I could walk into a room of 5 people and I could feel the shyest, most introverted, most not want to engage with anyone, but then I walk into a room of another 5 people and sparks are flying. And both of which are almost, say it's the exact same environment almost. It's in, you know, an open room where everyone's chatting. It's the exact same environment in both situations, but if I walk in, it's 5 different people that are sitting speaking to me and they make me feel incredibly welcome, and just like that, sparks are flying and I'm being myself. And I walk into a room and I'm really shy and it's like, this is quite, I've become quite introverted, I don't know where I want to be. What is the logical pathway to that happening? So the theory in which I created was the colour wavelength theory, which essentially, if I was to look at the world from up above, some people would be the colour red, some people would be the colour blue, green, black, white, and so on and so forth, to the point where everyone would be a completely different colour. And well, not everyone would be you know what I mean, every group will be a completely different colour. And that when you find a group of the similar colour as yourself, and that's why you should always be yourself, you should always be authentic, because if you're in a room of 12 individuals, they're all blue and you're red, and one person that's red walked in that room and you're sitting there trying to pretend to be blue to fit in, you're going to lose the potential chance of having that red friend. It sounds pure stupid, but you get the gist. Like, and that was that was like the theory that I took, and I've taken to Bex as well, because Bex is a wee bit of a struggle about being ourselves sometimes, and especially in group environments. I was like, man, like, and I broke down the theory, and from that point, she said it has helped her massively, and that's why I wanted to share it on a podcast in some sort of way, and that's why it was good for us to get to this place in terms of values and stuff like that. Because for me, it was the only logical explanation I had for the fact that when I walk into a room of 5 people, say 3 times over, and I felt introverted, but then I walk in a room with another 5 people, I feel phenomenal, on top of the world. Why is that? How is that? Curious to hear what your take is. I'm just being mindful of the time because I know it's 8:05, but
Yeah, no problem. No, it's an interesting theory. I quite like it. So my take on that is probably a little bit different. Whatever colour I am, we'll stick with the red, right? So if I am the red, I've been in plenty of rooms where there's blue, green, black, white, all different groups. And because I'm extroverted, I really like, and I've always really enjoyed how people work. So I like to see what makes people spark.
Yeah.
And what I do when I meet someone for the first time is I try to find out as quickly as I can what that is.
Yep.
People love to talk about themselves, right? No one doesn't. I love to talk about myself. You love to talk about yourself. Everyone loves to talk about themselves. So if you find something that interests them, they'll talk forever.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times where you're going to meet people, especially in business or life or whatever, that you just don't really click with. You're not looking to push forward with a relationship, become like business partners, that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
They're just people. But the thing is, you never really know what can happen with different people. Maybe at some point in the future, you can both benefit one another and give value to each other on polar opposite spectrums. So what I always try to do is get to know someone on a more personal level. What makes them tick, what makes them happy, what makes them excited to talk about themselves, what's something that really brings them joy. Because then you're able to understand, how can you give them something that maybe other people can't? How can you allow them to express themselves and understand more about themselves the way other people wouldn't? Because if you are going into a room with someone who's a completely different color from you, and you're the red and they're the blue, and you just freeze up and you don't ask them any questions, and it's all really closed questions, and it's only a yes or no thing, you're never going to know if there's a little bit of a mix between you both. Because not everyone is going to be directly red and directly blue. There's going to be a little bit of snippets in between that you can both add value to one another. So something I always try to do is make sure that I'm asking questions about themselves to then get them to speak about what makes them happy. And in that sense, I'm then able to make a connection with something that we could maybe talk about further. And you never know, that friendship could just become something, because as you were saying with the theory, someone could be covering themselves as a red, but they're actually a blue. And if you just allow them to express themselves freely without any judgment, they could potentially show off that side of them. Yeah. And that's when you've just unlocked something that 99% are not going to do, because they're just not willing to ask the questions that allow them to be more comfortable.
Yep. And I think for me, the part that I worked on most was exactly what you were speaking about. Well, no matter what, I'd be myself. So in terms of if I'm always going to be myself, who do I want me to be? Who am I going to work on to get myself to that level? And for me, it was asking, like you were saying, asking the right questions, bringing out the best in the person that's in the room with me. That's what I always focused on. And if I'm going to get in the room and it's someone that's shy or uncomfortable, I know more than anyone how it is with my old introverted self, the kind of questions that brought me out. So that take on it is incredibly interesting, because it is kind of where I've worked on most, I think, because I know that a lot of people do hide themselves, or they dim themselves down. It's something that Paula always talks about. I remember the first session I had with Paula's coaching. And for anyone that doesn't know, Paula does her coaching in a group environment, so you're in a group with about 7 or 8 other different people. And we were doing 30-second pitches was our first session, and Paula wanted us to give feedback to everyone. And I gave feedback to the first person, and the set person came round, and I had really good feedback, and I never said it. And I never said it because I didn't want to come across like a know-it-all. I didn't want to come across like I was some 21-year-old that was trying to tell somebody how to pitch when I didn't know how to pitch myself. Mm-hmm. Even though the feedback was good. Yeah. And I remember she voiced noted me and she was like, John Hamilton dimming himself down for the sake of what other people think of him. Whoever thought of it? And I sat there and I thought, fucking hell, man. Actual hub as well, what the fuck am I playing at, bro? Like, what am I doing? And it really got me thinking, mate. And that's why that theory for me is something that's given me a logical, almost like it's something I can put out to other people. I think that people can grasp when it comes to being authentic and being themselves. So I guess the final question is, what is next for Andrew Ellis?
Well, right now I'm still at university, so I'm going to be going into my second year for that. But for me personally, I'm really wanting to, in the future, once COVID is sort of past, do speaking around the world. I would love to be able to do that and help people become the best version of themselves.
Yep.
I'm currently working on my first ever course for habit building and mindset, related to that. I want to test my systems, my formulas to see how well they work. I've already seen that they work for other people, but I would love to do it on a sort of bigger scale.
Yep.
But yeah, just continue to work on myself and try to push myself forward as I do with everything that I can and see where it takes me.
100%, bro. And I'm excited to see where you go, mate, with us working together on such a frequent basis.
I'm excited as well.
And obviously this podcast is going to be going out after this has occurred, but myself and Andrew are hosting Andrew is hosting in partnership with YN a Master of the Mind workshop, which I'm really excited for, mate. And it's going to be so good to see you in it's going to be like your first workshop, in it, or your first kind of first workshop. It's going to be very exciting times, mate. It's going to be great.
I'm excited.
And that's going to be on the 17th of June. Yep. 16 days out, bro.
Love it.
Class. Right, Kirsty, bro. I'll round it up there. Thank you all for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, as these podcasts should be going up every fortnight. There'll be snippets rolling out pretty much every few days. And we'll catch you in the next one, guys.
Love it. Thank you for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
No worries at all, mate.